Panic and fear fell on EU elites and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk after U.S. President Donald Trump was sworn in. The question is whether their words of caution to Poles will be real. Today, I took a closer look at the situation.
We're talking about a tariff of 10% on China based on the fact that they're sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada.
How soon on those tariffs?
Probably February 1st is the date we're looking at. For Mexico and China, we're talking about approximately 25%.
Mexico and China, not Poland. U.S. President Donald Trump, as a first step, announced tariffs on Chinese imports starting February 1st. It is from China that fentanyl is shipped to Mexico and Canada. From there, it makes its way to the United States. This is a similar lie to the deportation of Poles from America.
All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy.
Donald Tusk tried to scare the Polish-American community with alleged consequences of the U.S. president's decision. After the first announcements of the new administration regarding the possible deportation of illegal migrants from the United States, I then asked the foreign minister to prepare our consulates. Again, it was not about Poland, but about Mexico. And what specifically did Donald Trump say about the European Union?
We have a $350 billion deficit with the European Union. They treat us very, very badly, so they're going to be in for tariffs. It's the only way you're going to get back. It's the only way you're going to get fairness. You can't get fairness unless you do that.
How did the EU elites react? An example is this statement by the head of the European Commission.
In this spirit, we will need to work together to avoid a global...
And to that end, Ursula von der Leyen is looking towards China.
It is time to pursue a more balanced relationship with China in a spirit of fairness and reciprocity. This new engagement with countries across the world is not only an economic necessity, but it's a message to the world. It is Europe's response to rising global competition. We want more cooperation with all who are open for it.
This is a kind of finger threat to the new American administration that if it starts to impose tariffs, then there is always the possibility of cooperation with China, especially since Trump, when talking about tariffs, if only during recent conferences or the signing of these executive orders, has so far mentioned tariffs on oil, that is, America's closest neighbors, namely Canada and Mexico. The EU elites, although in fear, are ready to even cooperate with communist China, and this is a clear signal that the idea is to build a new alliance in place of the existing Euro-Atlantic cooperation. An example is set by Polish MEP Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz. Yesterday, you applauded Trump, and it seems you don't mind that this U.S. president announced a trade war that will destroy the economy of the European Union. The time of comfort has passed. We all know that. If today the President of the United States talks about the need for Europe, for American allies, to take more responsibility for their own security, what is going on? What are the EU and Polish ruling elites afraid of? You can see the administrations of European countries. They are nervous because the announcement of tariffs is indeed a very big impulse, plunging the European Union, which is in a difficult situation. For example, when it comes to energy costs, when it comes to competing in the labor market. Such a big ally saying clearly and firmly what it wants and knowing how to get it forces them to step down. The opposition is in no doubt that when it comes to political alliances, Donald Tusk is looking towards Germany, not the U.S. Donald Tusk has said, and has said it repeatedly, that one should consolidate around Ursula von der Leyen and around Green Deal policies. Donald Tusk and his people argued for the Green Deal, but after Donald Trump won the election, and for the sake of the presidential campaign in Poland, they are trying to argue that they have changed their minds on the issue. Unbelievable. The Civic Platform politicians voted for the Green Deal. How is this possible? Now Tusk says it's a terrible idea in general, that it hits economies and wallets. Donald Trump is making it clear. He has already withdrawn the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement, which introduces the Green Deal. Now it's time for Poland, unless Prime Minister Donald Tusk changes his mind again.
Matejki Square in Krakow and a protest of over 1,000 people. It's been a year since their rule, and it's one big ruin, because this is what is leading Poland to ruin. The demolition of the judiciary, the destruction of public media, the introduction of censorship, more and more mass layoffs, and the abandonment of strategic investments. Poles' opposition to the December 13th coalition government's actions is growing. The economy is collapsing and it hurts me terribly. I can't accept that factories are collapsing and we are not allowed to do anything. It just scares me how Poland is collapsing. The miners have already started their hunger strike. Shipping can't be done. Ports can't be done. Nothing can be done. What can we then do in our own country? It was stressed that Poles should place the hope for a strong and rich country in Poland, not in Brussels. The chance for change will be the upcoming presidential elections. The chairman of Krakow's Gazeta Polska Club, Marek Michno, said that full mobilization of Poles is needed, both at the ballot box and in making sure that the presidential election is not rigged. From today, from tomorrow, we must show courage, then reason, wisdom, and all those qualities that will allow us to unite, that will allow us to convince the unconvinced. In Krakow, strong support for the free media, which wants to destroy the Tusk regime, committed support for Republika, the revocation of whose broadcast license government representatives are announcing. There are media that keep our side. Without them, we will perish. The organisers of the protest, Krakow's Gazeta Polska Club and Solidarity of the Lesser Poland region, announced that this is just the beginning of mass demonstrations against the policies of Donald Tusk's government. I promise you that these protests in Krakow and throughout Poland will take place and will continue until victory. The victory that millions of Poles need.
10,000 troops at the border, suspension of apps that facilitate asylum applications, and mass arrests and deportations of people without permission to stay in the United States. Donald Trump has issued the first dispositions on the front lines of the war against illegal migration. The first effects are already visible, and the first group of migrants has already been sent back to the other side of the border fortifications. Preparations are already underway. Military patrols are arriving along the border with Mexico. The first major reinforcement is 1,500 soldiers, including the Marines. Eventually, however, up to 10,000 are to be deployed to the border.
They need to be successful for them to make money, and as it gets harder and harder for them to be successful, we do see that the increases in assaults, uses of force, things like that do increase. So we've been putting a concerted effort on all of our training to make sure that our agents are best equipped, best trained to deal with those situations.
But the border is only part of the war declared on illegal migration by the new administration in the White House. The key is the domestic front and catching those who pose a threat to Americans in the first place.
President Trump is sending a very strong message to people around this world. If you are thinking about breaking the laws of the United States of America, you will be returned home, you will be arrested, you will be prosecuted. Do not come.
It's a 5-minute vote.
This is to be helped by a law just passed, ordering the services to arrest and deport any illegal immigrant who has committed any crime.
This is a good bill. It's a common sense law enforcement bill. Simply states, minor level crime now, local law enforcement can contact ICE to get these people detained, processed, and deported. These people, these criminals that come across that inflict violence on American families, they just get more and more emboldened.
The name of the bill, Lake and Riley, is that of a Georgia student murdered last February by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela who entered the country 2 years earlier and was not deported despite repeated arrests for theft and robbery.
We will begin the largest deportation operation in the history of the United States.
We will close the border. We will stop the invasion of illegals into our country. We will defend our territory. We will not be conquered. We will not be conquered. We will reclaim our sovereignty.
On the other side of the border, full mobilization of the services. Mexican authorities claim they are prepared for deportations. The Mexican government has the operational capacity to help our returning brothers and sisters. They are not alone. On this side of the border, we are ready to take them in. The problem is that the scale in question could quickly verify the capabilities of the Mexican services. Secondly, the deportations will affect not only Mexican citizens, but anyone who has crossed the southern border. Mexico does not want to take in citizens who are not their own, unless they declare a desire to return to their countries of origin.
Is it art or is it pornography? And on top of that, aimed at the youngest. These are the questions parents of Warsaw children are asking when they visit the capital's Museum of Modern Art to buy books about, among other things, gender transition. In them they read, or actually see, since the books are accompanied by shocking illustrations, the stories of teenagers who have only one dream: to change their gender. After the scandal was revealed, the Ministry of Culture and the capital City Hall argue that the books are not intended for children, but the authors have a different opinion. Opposition politicians are also intervening in this appalling case and asking where the books promoting LGBT ideology came from. Questions are also being asked about the cost of building the Museum of Modern Art and why taxpayers must maintain it. My name is Jazz. This is the story of a boy who identifies as a girl. A richly illustrated book, this is one of the items available in the bookstore at the Warsaw Museum of Modern Art. One wonderful day, everything changed. Mum and Dad took me to a new doctor. He asked a lot of questions, and later talked to my parents, and for the first time I heard the word transgender. The next pages, no less shocking. The boy is outraged at the teachers who do not see him as a girl. At the beginning of the school year, they wanted me to use the boys' restroom and go to PE classes with boys, but I thought it was abnormal. Hence the questions from law and justice politicians. Is this subject matter related to contemporary art? Is this a museum theme? And this is done officially by an institution supervised by Rafał Trzaskowski. There is much, much more. We will talk about this in the coming days, because this information must reach the people of Warsaw, so that they know what they are trying to push into the heads of children here. Because there are more such books available in the museum. Genderqueer. It's a story written in comic book form about a girl who really wants to change her gender. I was 11 or 12 years old when I started imagining that I had a penis. The main character is so intolerant of her gender that... Anyway, see for yourself. In the 7th grade, my mother bought me my first bra. I was happy because it flattened my small breasts so well that they were not visible. I began to dream of breast cancer because then I would have the perfect excuse for a mastectomy. Moreover, illustrated with almost pornographic drawings, instructions for oral sex. This is exactly how I imagined it, but I don't feel anything. In my mind, it was much more exciting. This is just awful. This is disgusting. This is something that must cause objection in any normal person. This is a further part of the woke ideology to destroy society, to destroy the concept of a family. We need to express our objections. This is just served calmly, served in such a way that nothing happened. Well, it did happen. In general, what is it doing at the Museum of Contemporary Art? What is it doing at the Museum of Contemporary Art? The Museum of Modern Art, also known as Trzaskowski's block because of its offbeat architecture, is one of the newest places on the cultural map of Warsaw. Donald Tusk's deputy is now the Civic Coalition's candidate for president, and he personally opened it last autumn. When all of you can see this collection, there will surely be even more of this discussion, and that is exactly the point. Warsaw is a diverse, tolerant, open, and ready place for debate. And there is indeed no shortage of reasons for debate. The Polish Ministry of Culture tries to downplay the problem and argues that it has no influence on the content available there. It also emphasizes that the books in question are not intended for children. The Ministry has received clarification in which the Museum of Modern Art says that the queer section is not an offer aimed at minors and that the book in question was not available in the children's section. The programme and artistic projects carried out at the institution are under the authority of the institution's director. It is not the responsibility of the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage to coordinate bookstore offers. However, page 4 of Genderqueer reads that it is an item intended for a younger audience. I think Rafał Trzaskowski forgot to hide this book, because at the moment it simply harms him as a candidate for the President of Poland. As the President of Warsaw, it probably doesn't harm harm him, because Warsaw is quite particular and liberal, and it may appeal to some Warsaw residents, but as a candidate for the President of Poland, it is simply harmful. He forgot to hide it, his people forgot to hide it, and they probably will in the near future. This is quite probable, as the capital City Hall also says that it has nothing to do with the sale of pornographic children's books. But the milk has been spilled, and with the discussion of the museum's offerings, questions on the unearthly cost of building it, 640 million zloty, are returning. Determining how it really was here is also a very important element in assessing the credibility or lack of credibility of Mr. Trzaskowski, who of course can speak beautifully, but it is actions, not words, that count. By their fruits shall you know them. One fruit already stands behind us, and the bill that was issued for its construction is itself a scandal that must be explained. The Museum of Modern Art as a cultural institution is maintained through taxes, including those of people who disagree with the depraving of children and young people. Every year it receives a government subsidy of 50 million zloty.